Hello, welcome everyone to the Good Art Friends, where good friends discuss good art. Jonathan, how you doing on this fine day?
I am great. It was a little rainy today, but I went out, I went bowling, and I've been at home enjoying some good media from this year. I've been playing Sea of Stars.
Oh, I've read about that. It's good?
It's really good.
Okay.
Top media choice of the year. Not the top, but a top media
tier,
choice of
top
the year.
tier,
Top
S
tier
tier.
media choice of the year, yes.
Okay. And that, that's maybe that's something that we can talk about on this podcast in a future episode. And that's probably good places to start. So what is this podcast? What are we going to do?
We are going to pick art in all media, whether it's book, movie, as we're going to be talking about in this show, music also, which I think we'll be talking about very soon. We are just talking about art that we enjoy, and we're going to discuss it.
Yeah. Could be highbrow, could be, lowbrow. Just all of it is art. Comic books, video games.
A banana taped to a wall.
Yep. Your cat Theo just walked by. Cats.
Yes.
The animal, not that weird movie. But yeah, let's do a whole episode on cats.
On cats. Yes.
Anything, and monthly. So and at the end of each episode, we'll give people a heads up on what the next topic's going to be, so you can take a month to read or watch or pet a cat. Whatever it might be. And then, we'll discuss it as we go through. And it'll have two parts. So the first part of each episode will be like spoiler free, just context, those kind of things there. Then we'll break. And then afterwards, there'll be a timestamp. That's where the spoilers will start. So that way, everybody can kind of get the general context and then dive in when you're ready to talk about the spoilers.
Yes.
And what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we are going to go see The Boy and the Heron, the new Miyazaki movie, which is, I think they're saying, like one of the final ones of his career. He might make one more.
He said that before, though. I think it was 2013. He was like, I'm done. What was it? The Wind Rises. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen The Wind Rises. It's on my list. There's a lot of movies of his that I need to see, including Nausicaa, which I think was his first one. But this year, there was a Studio Ghibli Fest where they showed a lot of his movies in different theaters. And so you and I, we went to go see Howl's Moving Castle, which is a personal favorite of mine. Yes. Earlier in the year, I also saw Princess Mononoke, and I went to go see Spirited Away. Also, trying to think, I think that was all that I saw this year. And what's fun is that, like, for you, because you were going to be asking me, I'm sorry, Theo, I didn't know you were there. You're going to be asking me about the Miyazaki movies. And, a lot of the things that I feel are common threads in his movies they are about personal journey. Like you saw Howl's Moving Castle. It was all about his journey to understand himself. Yeah. So that's really like one of the large themes. And it's usually a lot of times as a young adult or an adolescent lead. And to go along with that, a lot of other common themes are also that adults are stupid sometimes. Fair. That, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Because there's always at least one chaotic evil character in each movie. There's usually, you could say there's one chaotic evil character. There's one chaotic good character, and then there is a lawful good and a lawful evil character also. That is how I feel I can dissect a Miyazaki movie.
That's good to I appreciate the primer, because I will say one thing I'm looking forward to with this podcast is we have similar tastes, and in terms of just media that we have consumed, I feel like it's a Venn diagram with a pretty large overlap, but there are things on each of the fringes that it has been kind of unique. And Miyazaki was one of those where I hadn't seen any until you took me to see Howl's Moving Castle. Thank you, by the way, for that, because I thought it was wonderful and dreamlike and just incredibly moving.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get you on the record to talk about Howl's Moving Castle with you, seeing it for the first time. Like, what did you get out of it?
It was, I appreciated the, I was listening in anticipation for this recording. The Big Picture did an episode on Miyazaki, and they talked about like um, the worst thing you can do to your partner is tell them about your dreams. Like, no one actually enjoys that, right? But for somehow Miyazaki, he's essentially like, these movies are him like putting his dreams, giving them shape, turning them into a narrative, but in a way that you actually are like, oh wow, that was fascinating and incredible. And that I felt that with Howl's Moving Castle, that the narrative was unique. It wasn't following a typical like 5-act structure and all those kind of things there. It felt like I was stepping into his dream, but in doing so, it was incredibly moving in a way that I can't quite articulate. And I'm curious how I feel after seeing my second one. And then, maybe more.
I'm going to give you extra credit now to watch Ponyo, because you have 2 kids.
Yes.
I think that they would enjoy watching Ponyo.
Okay. And that was going to be one of my questions was just what to try with them. So Ponyo, okay, I'll give that a shot. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, what about you? What are some of the things that you love about Miyazaki, and what might be one of your favorites?
I really love the art style and just the way that the movies are written, and I love that they get to happen in different time periods. Like Princess Mononoke is set like feudal Japan kind of setting.
Yeah.
And then we saw Howl's Moving Castle, which was like 1920s ish.
And yet there's this it almost has this, it's not steampunk, but that steampunk like quality of being kind of unlocked in time, unmoored in time, which I thought was wonderful.
And then you get Spirited Away, which you can easily say is set in the modern day, if not like 1980s. Like the train. Yeah. And it's just because they're very multifaceted, I would say. And I just enjoy the worlds that he creates and the amount of care that is put into them.
Yeah.
And it's just really fun to just sit down and to be thrust into a world that is nothing like one that you know. Yeah,
it's have you ever read anything by Italo Calvino?
I have not.
Oh, it's wonderful. That might be on the other end. He's maybe my favorite author, and it has a similar kind of like fairy tale like quality, but that's very playful and frivolous. But while at the same time that pendulum can then swing back and just be so heart-wrenching and just like kind of destroy you. And that whimsical quality I find quite moving. Yeah.
Now, one thing I know, like going into seeing this movie, one thing that's been discussed is just like, it's all about facing trauma. And I don't know how prepared I am for that after the year that I've had.
Yeah.
Which, out of context, you don't need to know anything.
No.
But it's going to be interesting. But I think that is something that also is something that Miyazaki has in a lot of his movies, where he has characters face up to whatever it is that they are so much afraid of. Like for Hal, he was afraid of losing his youth. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and embracing certain part of him, like that like. Well, I'll step aside from spoilers from that movie, but yeah, there's a few things that he was resisting. The embracing and owning ends up bringing more out. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll be right next to you.
I'll also have sour candy, so that'll be fun.
Okay. Well, and that was one of my questions. What is your movie snack of choice?
I love sour candy in all forms.
Okay. So like Sour Patch Kids specifically? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I usually will go for. Although I will say I haven't seen these around at a theater for a while, which I find just odd. But number one, theater candy, snow caps.
That was going to be mine. And I was Googling earlier if it still exists. And apparently it still does. Nestle, I think, makes them. But I haven't seen them in a movie theater in ages. That's awesome.
The nonpareils.
Yes. Yeah, right there. Snow caps. There's my notes. I love it. It's such a weird snack.
I went to go see Renaissance yesterday with my sister-in-law, my oldest sister, my niece, and my my brother's mother-in-law, so my sister-in-law's mom. And my niece was very adamant about wanting to get the popcorn and the Sour Patch, the Airheads Extremes, the rainbow strip ones that are like cut into the small segments, so not the long ribbon ones. And she put them into her popcorn, so she would have the sour, salty, sweet snack.
Okay, I like it. Inventive.
Blew my mind.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I don't know if this qualifies, but I enjoy going to Alamo theaters. No free ads. It's just and they have a great super pretzel, like giant buttery. So in preparation, I have went to La Farm down in Fuquay earlier today, and I have half a pretzel left. So I'm going to be smuggling in half a pretzel for my movie snack tonight.
My favorite thing about going to the Alamo is that they keep Reptar juice on draft. That's one of my favorite beers. Yeah. I went to go see Jurassic Park this summer, and I had Reptar juice.
You have to.
I was wearing my Jurassic Park button-down shirt, and I told the bartender, I'm like, I'm here to see the dinosaur movie. I want the dinosaur beer.
Yeah, naturally. I love it. Now, so I will say that one of the other questions for seeing Miyazaki, or really this could apply to any kind of foreign language, Kurosawa, whatever it might be, is the subbed or dubbed, subtitles or dubbed. What is your preference here?
My personal preference is that I enjoy subtitled movies. Now, I like this because, it doesn't really extend the same into animation because, you're not really going to get a one-to-one animation of a mouth in a foreign language. But I feel as if you get a more authentic delivery of the movie. Like, for example, I watched Nuovo Olimpo earlier this year, which I showed up because the gays on Reddit were talking about how hot everybody was. And then I stayed because,
and were they?
It was a really, really great movie. And also yes. Also, yes. But it was a phenomenal movie. I started on Netflix, and it had automatically gone to an English dub.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh no, this voice acting just will not do.
Yeah.
I immediately threw it into Italian. And it's just, you get the full experience of the movie.
Yeah. They're always, I completely agree. Everything you're saying. There always does feel like some cultural appropriation a little bit. Like you're going to take them, but like, no, I want to watch this in a way that's convenient to me. And it's cool when you're able to like engage in something the way that was. Actually, even just right before I left, you watching the Marvel's What If?
I haven't.
It's pretty decent. And by the time this episode airs, all of them will be out. But they had a full episode that was entirely in the Mohawk language with a little bit of like conquistador Spanish. It was really well done. And it does pull you into that story a little bit more. So, I agree that when possible, the subtitles are the way to go.
Yeah, and just to add on to that also, earlier this year, so I watched a lot of movies this year. This was how I coped with my trauma this year. I watched a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I went to go see Godzilla -1.
Oh, yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that, like, as far as I've seen, it's only available in Japanese. Good. And it kicks ass.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta see that.
It's so good. There's a re-release in Japan in black and white called Godzilla -Color. And it's not just the fact that, like, they threw the movie into black and white. They actually shot it like basically 1-to-1 in black and white.
That's pretty cool. Okay, yeah. I gotta see that. I love Godzilla. I've been watching the Legacy.
Is it Monarch?
Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
That's going on my list of things to watch.
It's not bad. Okay, now with all that said, we're seeing the dub version in about half an hour.
Yes.
It was the only thing that was available.
Yeah, it was what was available. Yeah. And I'll probably just get the movie anyway.
Yeah, and I will say that part of it is just that sometimes the dub versions are just poorly done, but that does not seem to be the case. Like we saw Howl's Moving Castle. That was also actually a dubbed, and that was a tremendous voice cast, and this one seems to be as well. So we'll check back in afterwards.
This is another thing about the Miyazaki movies is that they always get unbelievable voice casts.
Yeah. Okay. So any other thoughts before we hit pause and see the movie?
I am excited.
Me too.
It's a good way for me to end the year. I think I might see. Wait, no, this is the last week of the year. I was possibly going to see maybe one more movie before it was out. I was going to see Dream Scenario.
Oh yeah, that's the Nicolas Cage one, right?
Cage one.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be on hold to the new year, which is fine.
Yeah, I'm at 49 on my Letterboxd. So I gotta find one more movie before, not necessarily in theaters. But
I
gotta
have
hit 50.
Letterboxd, and I struggle to keep up with it. It's like, I'll go see a movie, and then it's like I gotta go like into the app and do the thing.
My resolutions were read 50 books, watch 50 movies, and make one neighborhood friend. Mm-hmm. I got the 250 ones and didn't get one. So that tells our listeners.
Yeah, 3 more days, 4 more days.
Yeah, it's only one. Yeah, it's doable.
Just host a New Year's party.
You know nothing about me if you think I'm going to host a big party with strangers coming over. Okay. So we're gonna hit pause. There'll be a little jingle, all that, and then we'll come back later at some non-determined point and talk about it. But through the miracles of editing, to our listeners, it will sound like mere seconds. So if you have not seen the movie yet, do not continue listening past the do music. Pause, see the music, come back after. No, pause, see the movie, come back after, and then we'll talk about it together. Okay, I'm excited. Let's do this. Okay, we're back. Saw the movie. Ready to talk about it.
It was a trip.
That is a good way to put it. That was definitely a trip.
It's an understatement to put it that way. But yeah. Oh boy, it was a trip.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to attempt a brief summary if I can. It's a weird movie to summarize, but okay. So you got boy Mahito loses his mom in the what is presumed the bombing of Tokyo.
Yes.
So interesting. They only say the war, which I think is intriguing. So then he moves to the country with his father, who has married Mahito's aunt.
Yes.
Who looks just like Mahito's mom, which is, a choice. And then at this point, so Mahito is distraught. He's kind of really like everything's kind of inward. And it's this point that this strange looking Heron starts to like essentially stalk him and lures him into this strange tunnel where it's meant to be this trap. But Mahito, through the use of this special arrow, is able to kind of thwart it. And this mysterious presence that we later learn is the boy's great grand uncle or whatever the right phrase is, orders the Heron to kind of lead Mahito in a quest to find and save their sprinkles, to find and save his aunt mom. I don't know the right way to refer to this.
To save. He's trying to save his mom.
Well, no.
Yes. Trying to save his
aunt mom.
His aunt mom. Yes.
But while there, he gets kind of pulled into this other world where everything's slightly inverted and mystical and magical. And there's characters that in the real world are old. Like one of the grannies, which are fascinating, is now young, including like a young version of his mom who's there. And it's this whole kind of adventure he's going through, trying to survive. It is chaotic realm there. And eventually Mahito, through the help of young granny and the Heron, is able to save the aunt mom, say goodbye to his former mom, reject the plea from his great grand uncle asking him to take over the ruler of this realm, and he returns to the real world. And from there, his family is now, he's kind of accepted this new family, moving back to Tokyo. Okay, what am I missing from the summary?
I think you pretty much nailed it. It was really interesting for me, like, in hindsight, thinking about the fact that, this is the Spirited Away setup. Right. You go into the mystical structure and from there you are transported to another world. I will say, again, I haven't seen the entire Miyazaki collection, but I was surprised to see Mahito. Like, he was like a very angry protagonist.
Yeah. And my understanding from, again, there's only the second Miyazaki movie I've seen. It seems also rare that he was a male protagonist. It seems like oftentimes it's girls at the center of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. And especially that beginning, he is very serious and solemn and angry. Yeah. And, one other thing, for us, this was a few days ago. For listeners, it was a few minutes ago. Before we saw it, you said, like, Miyazaki oftentimes in movies, you got chaotic good and evil. You also said dumb adults. And that ended up being very prescient.
And also a lawful good and lawful evil character. Yeah,
and I love the chaotic good and the chaotic evil because they were in the same character of the Heron. Really, and we also mentioned we saw the dub version, wildly performed and wonderfully performed, I thought, by Robert Pattinson, which I never would have thought.
Yeah.
And the dumb adults, I feel like the flip side of that coin is just capable, competent children, which seems to be. And I think that was that in Mahito. He has his like uniform. He takes everything very seriously. He's not reliant on adults to fix things. He feels like he has a responsibility, which I thought made him a pretty fascinating character.
And then you have his dad, who is just very firmly, I can buy anything and everything.
Yeah. And his dad was interesting. I've read a little bit. This movie's fascinating that there seems to be certain autobiographical touches to this. So, for instance, Miyazaki's dad was created like fighter jets, which also led this kind of this conflict, it seems, within Miyazaki. He loves planes. It apparently shows up in a lot of his movies, but also just that he rejects war and fascism and some of those kind of things. So that kind of showed up in the movie.
Speaking of, and I want to make sure I bring this up because I want to make sure I don't forget, the parakeets are wild, but also was the fact that, like, as you learn more about where they are, it's like the parakeets are the rulers, right? However, when they're working on escaping or sneaking into the tower, when they're above everything else, and they're along these girders with spikes on them, I'm like, how is there anti-bird architecture in this place that is ran by birds? Yeah,
that's a good question. But yeah, they were visually stunning and just hilarious. It's one of the things I'm not entirely certain what they mean, but I think that's part of the appeal of the movie is that it doesn't. Actually, this made me think of I don't know if you heard a great quote by Tolkien about how he kind of rejects allegory, which this felt like it was just a subtweet of C.S. Lewis. He rejects that like 1-to-1, like the lion must equal Jesus, and more so saying that he likes applicability. I love that line. The one allegory resides in the freedom. The one applicability resides in the freedom of the reader, and the other allegory in the purpose domination of the author. And that it might be that Miyazaki has these kind of things in his head, what they may or may not mean. But it's not so allegorical that you have to read it a certain way. So the parakeets or the tower or the great granduncle or something like that, I think that gives the viewers freedom to figure out how it does apply to their life. And it might even change over time. Yeah. So I thought that was fascinating because that internal world that he escapes into, it just is incredible.
Yeah. And it was a lot of the allegories. And I was thinking about this on my drive over here. One thing that I really pulled out of it, and there's two things that I can think of, but one is that, there is beauty in loss.
Yeah.
Right. And, like the first couple of times that you see loss in the movie are, of course, like Mahito's mom within the fire. Or I guess really the second time would be him thinking that he sees his mom with the illusion from the Heron.
Yeah.
But after that, you get the Wada Wada who are being born and going up to the world, and then they're all getting eaten by the pelicans. And Lady Hime comes in and, you know, shoots the fireworks to distract the pelicans from eating all the wada wada. And, you know, some of them get burned in the process, in which Kiriko brings up the fact that, you know, because she did this, you know, the rest of these wada wada will survive. If she didn't do anything, then they would probably all get eaten.
Yeah. And and it is such a complex view of loss. And even just that world he escapes into as a response to it, where it is necessary and sad and tragic. Is there's this dynamism there, because the internal world, like, it's not, at the end, he needs to escape. He needs to rejoin the real world. Right. But at the same time, there's beauty there. And there's even a loss of, like, when he comes back to the real world, the Heron is saying, you'll forget it. And there's this almost mourning of this, like, magical world that kids can inhabit, that adults sometimes lose, this world of wonder and magic that you can't get caught there in mourning as like an escape or just like within your own kind of internalized world. But at the same time, you do need some amount of it. I don't know if I'm thinking of it the right way, you know? Yeah.
And then, like, really at the end, like, he spends the entire movie chasing after his mom. Right. And, like, he goes into the tower on, you know, the thought that he's going to rescue his mom, which the Heron said was possible. And he does end up finding her in Lady Hime. And when he's leaving, you know, he's talking to her saying about how, like, I can't lose you again. Right. Sort of thing. And then, like, she, you know, goes back to him about, you know, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, I have to go back to my world because I need to go to the hospital where you're going to be born.
Which is, the old time loop kind of thing.
Right. And it's just, it's the beauty in the acknowledgement of, yes, we've had our time together and that was our time and we were better for it.
Yeah. And also because I know she's gone. She left him with that book titled How Do You Live, which in Japan is what the movie is named. And apparently it's the same name as a book that Miyazaki loved or something like that. But this idea that she lives on through the art that she created, which also then could be perhaps autobiographical, with this being Miyazaki's last film, just which is kind of fascinating. And also, you know, when he sees his aunt, he calls her mom for the first time. So it's, in terms of the role, he has kind of accepted that. So it is this letting go and not letting go at the same time, which is kind of beautiful.
Yeah. And the other allegorical thing that I pulled out of it was also just the rejection of generational trauma.
Go on.
Well, I mean, at the tail end of the movie, like we only get a small glimpse into the relationship between the tower keeper and the leader of the parakeets, which Duke, I think, was his name.
Yep.
We only get a fraction of it. But, you know, the tower keeper, his great granduncle, sets him up with saying, hey, listen, like, you can keep this world going, stack the blocks every 3 days. Yeah. And he's just straight up says, no. Yeah. And that's, and I wasn't sure, like, part of me, and this, again, the beauty of Miyazaki is it's not just a one-to-one kind of thing. Part of me went to just, like, is it fascism? This idea that you need one strong, entitled person to order the entire world for other people. Is it about Miyazaki himself thinking about, like, all this he built with Studio Ghibli, these imaginary wonderful worlds, and thinking of, like, oh, is there someone to hand it off to next, or does it just let it, what will be? I'm not sure, but it is, that block of towers is fascinating. And at the end, because he does hold on to one block of it, so there's still a piece that he's bringing with him, but not in charge of all of it. Right. And maybe that's, you know, as Miyazaki does retire, you know, whatever it might be, that there isn't someone to build his towers exactly as he did, but each of us has a block, you know? And there's also just, like, because when they leave and the tower, like, disintegrates behind them, right? And it's just like, the whole setup, you hear the grannies talking about the myth of the tower, how nobody should go near it and all of that.
Yeah.
And now it's just gone. And they just have something else for them to completely build their lives and go forward with.
Yeah. And they wouldn't if he didn't actually go in there, you know, like you have to. And maybe that goes back into like that Mourning and Loss, that you do have to like kind of dive into the abyss to some degree, but you got to figure out how to be able to pull yourself out. Yeah. So what were your other thoughts?
I thought that he had a mohawk from the posters, and he did not. It was a little sad.
Yeah, that's disappointing. That'd be cool. You know, we need more mohawked protagonists.
I miss my mohawk very much.
You had a mohawk?
I did once, yeah.
When? This was before I knew you.
Yeah, probably. This was like many, many years ago. I was still in college. It was a good time though. But yeah, it's just like, you know, and going back to him being an angry protagonist, it's just like, it was such a choice for him to bludgeon himself with a rock.
Right.
Just to avoid saying, I got into a fight.
Yeah. And then later he returns to that and acknowledges that like he can't rule this beautiful world when he has that like pain within him. You know, he scarred himself with it. But yeah, that was definitely a choice.
That was so wild. And it was also like at the beginning of the movie, I'm like, am I getting put into an Inception setup here? Because you had the original dream setup where the Heron talks to him and he goes hunting, and his aunt mom, who I can't remember her name right now.
Oh, I don't have her written down.
Yeah, she shows up with the screaming arrow.
Yep.
To scare off the Heron.
Oh yeah.
And then he comes to, and none of that happened. I'm like, okay, is the Heron only going to talk to him in a dream? Is this whole movie a dream?
Yeah, but at the end, it's kind of a there and back again story where real world into this, calling it internal world, whatever you want to do, but then back to the real world. And likewise, that's paralleled with, it starts in Tokyo, then it moves to this countryside, and then back to Tokyo. So each of them has this kind of going to this other world, but then returning.
Also, I have something that is like entirely pedantic, right, about how I view movies.
Okay.
All right, so like one thing that I appreciate about this movie, and this is probably a completely pedantic point here, but I appreciate the fact that this movie, the entire tower sequence happened in about 3 hours. It's just like they disappeared, and the entire movie is just like a continuous amount of time, because like I don't know what it is about me that I don't like when you watch a movie and you can't figure out like how long this entire movie is happening.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. In fact, there's some, I don't have the name of it, but there's like a theory back in like Shakespeare's time, that like the best stories, unity of, I forget what, essentially that however long a play takes on stage is how much time should pass in real life. It should have that and one setting and one, I think there's a third thing or something. But this was kind of that. And I think that makes it, that pulls the viewer into it. You feel like you are this empathetic traveler along with them, which is cool. And we should probably talk about just visually stunning. Like almost parts of it had this like oil painting kind of feel to it, you know?
My favorite sequence, again, if you're listening to this, you've probably heeded the spoiler warning.
I hope so.
Right.
If not, that's not on us. That's on you. That was your choice.
My favorite part was when they're fleeing the tower as it's starting to explode and implode within itself. And they're going through and they're running away, and you see just like the galaxy and star background behind them. I was just like, oh man, I love this. That really pulled at me.
It was beautiful. It really was. And I love Pixar movies. And in some ways, I think Pixar is this, there is no Pixar probably without Studio Ghibli, you know, but it does feel like since, I don't know, Toy Story, that almost, at least in the Western hemisphere, that all movies are following this mold of like that 3D kind of look there, which is cool. But I like, between this, Across the Spider-Verse was beautiful. Even the Ninja Turtles cartoon that came out this year was like some different. I like to see people experiment with the animation and have the visuals match the story. And I think this one definitely did, especially as you dove into that dreamlike world and the visuals matched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off topic, talking about visuals, it's going to be a new Wallace and Gromit next year.
Oh, I love Wallace and Gromit.
Know, it's so exciting.
Ooh, yeah.
But yeah, visually, it was great. I'm trying to think. There weren't many big food sequences in this movie, though, which is like something that features a lot in Miyazaki movies. Because, like, you know, we went to go see Howl's Moving Castle. We had the cooking scene. We had the one scene where, you know, they're filleting the fish. They have the scene.
Oh, when they're cutting open the fish. That was yeah. Yeah.
We have the scene where Kiriko cooks for them at the house where she is. And we have like really early on when Mahito's dad brought, you know,
the various
really nice
canned.
food.
Yeah.
That was really it. There wasn't like a really big feast scene.
Okay.
Which I think of a lot in a lot of different Miyazaki movies.
I'll have to look
Just
out
thinking
for that.
about illustrations and all of that.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, like Spirited Away starts off with just like a copious amount of food at the beginning of the movie.
All right, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep in the episode Indy running and saying I gotta go potty. But now we're back.
Yes.
You're in potty. Everything's good.
Yes.
You were saying about Spirited Away.
Yeah, I was just talking about how like there wasn't really a big feast scene, which I found interesting.
Do you think that's just the wartime aspect of it?
I just think that there were more pressing needs to the movie. I mean, like even in like Spirited Away, which is like a really big like race, kind of a race against time kind of thing, but even still, like you have to take the moments in. Like there's multiple days that pass, and then that's really the part of it is that there's multiple days that pass in that movie. In this movie, like again, it all happens within
we probably see the meals that they
like
do
2 hours.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? I'm looking over my notes.
I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this. So with this being your second Miyazaki film, how would you compare this to Howl's Moving Castle?
Good question. I mean, both. So one of the things I was reading was that Miyazaki, so typically you're making a movie, you come up with the script and then you storyboard it out. Something that Miyazaki apparently does oftentimes when he's coming up with these is he does the storyboards first. Like he has these visuals in mind and then he'll figure out the dialogue and sometimes even like the story itself. And both of those, I think that comes through in each of these, just these striking visuals at the heart, as opposed to a more kind of stereotypical plot. So be it the parakeets in this or the castle itself as it's moving through the fields, you know, both those I think really, really struck me. This story, I love them both. Another parallel, you mentioned like adults are dumb, but in each it's kind of almost this bell curve of stupidity throughout age, where adults are dumb, but kids are smart, and also old people are smart. Yes. This reference there, and I think that comes through in each of them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're both wonderful. And now I will say, so you gave me homework to watch Ponyo with my kids before the next episode. I think I'm gonna try to watch for each month. I'll check in with a quick overview of one of Miyazaki's movies. I think he has 12, and I've watched 2 of them, so that should take us through most of the year. But Ponyo coming next.
I think they're all on Max. Again, no free advertising. Yeah, I think that's where they are.
Yeah. So yeah, Ponyo, and then think about which one you want to assign me next. Yeah. Any other thoughts on your end before we wrap up?
I thought it was a beautiful movie. You know, it is just like there was a lot of trauma to process in the movie, which is true. Yeah. And like for me, again, on my drive over here, thinking about it and just recognizing that, yes, there is beauty in loss, I think is something that was nice for me to take along from the end of the year.
Well put. That's a good note to end on. Okay, next month. So we can give our listeners homework next month. What's the topic then?
I think we're going to do Javelin by Sufjan Stevens.
Yep.
Very exciting for me. I've listened to like a handful of his songs. I haven't really listened to any full albums, which of course I should start with "Come On and Feel the Illinois."
That is where that's a wonderful one. Yeah. Predatory Wasp with the Palisades Out to Get Us is a wonderful song and a wonderful title.
Yeah, and also like, Did I Make You Cry on Christmas Day? Well, you deserved it. Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. So yeah, everybody make sure you listen before the next episode. We got to do something a little bit more upbeat, uplifting for the whatever the third episode is.
This
so we
is
can start thinking about that. I mean, you can let us know, listeners, what you want. We don't really know what our contact information is yet.
No.
But we'll drop it in the show notes. We'll figure it out by the time we publish this.
Probably.
Yeah. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you next month when we talk about Sufjan Stevens' Javelin. All right. Take care.